James Knox Polk, the 11th President of the United States, remains a figure of significant historical importance, often remembered for his ambitious expansionist policies. Born in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina in 1795, Polk's journey from humble beginnings to the highest office in the land is a testament to his unwavering determination and political acumen. His presidency, though lasting only a single term, fundamentally reshaped the American landscape, both geographically and politically. Polk's unwavering commitment to manifest destiny, the belief that the United States was divinely ordained to expand its dominion across the continent, led to the annexation of vast territories and solidified the nation's position as a major power. Polk's pursuit of westward expansion, however, came at a considerable cost, including a controversial war with Mexico and the exacerbation of simmering sectional tensions over slavery. His administration's focus on territorial acquisition overshadowed other significant aspects of his presidency, including fiscal reforms and infrastructure development. While often overlooked in popular narratives, these achievements contributed to the nation's economic growth and stability. Polk's legacy is complex and multifaceted, marked by both remarkable accomplishments and controversial decisions that continue to be debated by historians. Understanding Polk's presidency requires examining the context of his time, a period of rapid social and political change. The young nation was grappling with issues of national identity, economic development, and the moral dilemma of slavery. Polk's leadership during this tumultuous era shaped the course of American history, leaving an indelible mark on the nation's future. His single-minded focus on expansion, while achieving its intended goals, also laid the groundwork for the deep divisions that would ultimately lead to the Civil War. This essay will delve into the various facets of James K. Polk's presidency, exploring his early life and political career, his rise to the presidency, his expansionist policies, and the lasting impact of his decisions on the nation. Through a comprehensive examination of his successes and controversies, we can gain a deeper understanding of this pivotal figure in American history. His story serves as a reminder of the complexities of leadership and the enduring consequences of political choices. James K. Polk's early life was marked by both hardship and opportunity. Born into a family of modest means, he experienced health challenges in his youth, undergoing surgery for bladder stones without anesthesia at the age of 17. Despite these early setbacks, Polk displayed a keen intellect and a strong work ethic. He excelled in his studies, graduating from the University of North Carolina in 1818 with honors. This academic success laid the foundation for his future career in law and politics. After completing his education, Polk pursued a legal career, studying under renowned Tennessee jurist Felix Grundy. He quickly established himself as a skilled lawyer and entered the political arena, serving in the Tennessee legislature from 1823 to 1825. This early experience provided valuable insights into the workings of government and honed his political skills. Polk's ambition and dedication propelled him forward, setting the stage for his ascent to national prominence. His time in the Tennessee legislature exposed him to the complexities of state politics and the growing sectional tensions over issues such as slavery and tariffs. Polk quickly learned the art of political maneuvering and compromise, skills that would serve him well throughout his career. He emerged as a strong advocate for states' rights and a staunch supporter of Andrew Jackson, the rising political star of the Democratic Party. This alliance with Jackson would prove crucial in Polk's future political trajectory. Polk's early political career in Tennessee provided him with a solid foundation for his future endeavors. He gained valuable experience in legislative processes, honed his debating skills, and established himself as a rising force within the Democratic Party. His commitment to Jacksonian principles and his unwavering ambition would propel him to higher office, ultimately leading him to the presidency. His early years in Tennessee politics shaped his political ideology and laid the groundwork for his future leadership on the national stage. Andrew Jackson, the hero of the Battle of New Orleans and a champion of the common man, exerted a profound influence on James K. Polk's political development. Polk became a staunch supporter of Jacksonian democracy, embracing its principles of limited government, states' rights, and westward expansion. This alignment with Jackson proved instrumental in Polk's rise through the ranks of the Democratic Party. Jackson recognized Polk's potential and became a mentor, guiding him through the intricacies of national politics. Under Jackson's tutelage, Polk's political career flourished. He was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1825, where he quickly established himself as a skilled debater and a loyal Jacksonian. He served as Speaker of the House from 1835 to 1839, a position of considerable power and influence. During his tenure as Speaker, Polk played a key role in advancing Jackson's legislative agenda, including the controversial removal of Native American tribes from their ancestral lands. Polk's loyalty to Jackson and his effectiveness as Speaker of the House solidified his position within the Democratic Party. He became a trusted advisor to the President and a key figure in shaping the party's platform. Polk's unwavering support for Jackson's policies, including his opposition to the Bank of the United States and his advocacy for westward expansion, cemented his reputation as a staunch Jacksonian Democrat. This close association with Jackson would prove invaluable in Polk's own presidential aspirations. After serving in the House, Polk returned to Tennessee and was elected governor in 1839. His experience as governor further enhanced his political credentials and demonstrated his ability to effectively administer a state government. Polk's success in Tennessee politics further solidified his position as a rising star within the Democratic Party. His unwavering commitment to Jacksonian principles and his proven leadership abilities positioned him as a strong contender for the presidency. The 1844 presidential election proved to be a pivotal moment in American history, and James K. Polk emerged as a surprising victor. Initially, Polk was not considered a leading contender for the Democratic nomination. However, his unwavering support for westward expansion, particularly the annexation of Texas, resonated with a significant portion of the electorate. The Democratic convention deadlocked between former President Martin Van Buren and Lewis Cass, opening the door for Polk's nomination as a compromise candidate. Polk's campaign focused on the popular slogan 54-40 or fight, which referred to the northern boundary of the Oregon Territory. This rallying cry appealed to expansionist sentiment and helped galvanize support for his candidacy. He also advocated for the acquisition of California, further solidifying his image as a champion of manifest destiny. Polk's clear and concise message resonated with voters who desired a strong leader committed to expanding American territory. The election was closely contested, with Polk narrowly defeating the Whig candidate, Henry Clay. Polk's victory was attributed to his strong stance on expansionism, which tapped into the prevailing national mood of the time. His appeal to voters in the South and West, coupled with divisions within the Whig Party, secured his election. Polk's unexpected triumph marked the beginning of a presidency that would dramatically reshape the map of the United States. Polk's emergence as a dark horse candidate and his subsequent victory underscored the importance of westward expansion as a defining issue in American politics. His election signaled a shift in the national conversation, placing manifest destiny at the forefront of the political agenda. Polk's presidency would be defined by his commitment to fulfilling this vision, leading to both significant achievements and lasting controversies. Following annexation in 1845, Polk began preparations for a potential war, sending an army to Texas, led by Brigadier General Zachary Taylor. American land and naval forces were both ordered to respond to any Mexican aggression, but to avoid provoking a war. Polk thought Mexico would give in under duress, Polk's presidential proclamation of war against Mexico. The president hoped that a show of force would lead to negotiations. In late 1845, he sent John Slidell to Mexico to purchase New Mexico and California for $30 million, as well as securing Mexico's agreement to a Rio Grande border. Mexican opinion was hostile, and President José Joaquín de Herrera refused to receive Slidell. Herrera soon was deposed by a military coup led by General Mariano Paredes, a hardliner who pledged to take back Texas. Dispatches from Slidell warned Washington that war was near. Polk regarded the treatment of Slidell as an insult and an ample cause of war, and he prepared to ask Congress to declare it. Meanwhile, in late March, General Taylor had reached the Rio Grande, and his army camped across the river from Matamoros, Tamaulipas. In April, after Mexican General Pedro de Ampudia demanded that Taylor return to the Nueces River, Taylor began a blockade of Matamoros. A skirmish on the northern side of the Rio Grande on April 25th ended in the death or capture of dozens of American soldiers and became known as the Thornton Affair. Word reached Washington on May 9th, and Polk sent a war message to Congress on the ground that Mexico had shed American blood on the American soil. The House overwhelmingly approved a resolution declaring war and authorizing the president to accept 50,000 volunteers into the military. In the Senate, war opponents led by Calhoun questioned Polk's version of events. Nonetheless, the House resolution passed the Senate in a 40-2 vote, with Calhoun abstaining, marking the beginning of the Mexican-American War. Map of the southwestern United States, including Texas, and also displaying Mexico with the movements of the forces in the war marked on it. Overview map of the war: disputed territory, United States territory, 1848 Mexican territory, 1848 after Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. After the initial skirmishes, Taylor and much of his army marched away from the river to secure the supply line, leaving a makeshift base, Fort Texas. On the way back to the Rio Grande, Mexican forces under General Mariano Arista attempted to block Taylor's way as other troops laid siege to Fort Texas, forcing the U.S. Army general to the attack if he hoped to relieve the fort. In the Battle of Palo Alto, the first major engagement of the war, Taylor's troops forced Aristas from the field, suffering only 4 dead to hundreds for the Mexicans. The next day, Taylor led the army to victory in the Battle of Resaca de la Palma, putting the Mexican army to rout. The early successes boosted support for the war, which, despite the lopsided votes in Congress, had deeply divided the nation. Many Northern Whigs opposed the war, as did others. They felt Polk had used patriotism to manipulate the nation into fighting a war, the goal of which was to give slavery room to expand. Polk distrusted the two senior officers, Major General Winfield Scott and Taylor, as both were Whigs, and would have replaced them with Democrats, but felt Congress would not approve it. He offered Scott the position of top commander in the war, which the general accepted. Polk and Scott already knew and disliked each other. The president made the appointment despite the fact that Scott had sought his party's presidential nomination for the 1840 election, away from Washington and to the Rio Grande, and was outraged to learn Scott was using his influence in Congress to defeat the administration's plan to expand the number of generals. The news of Taylor's victory at Resaca de la Palma arrived then, and Polk decided to have Taylor take command in the field and Scott to remain in Washington. Polk also ordered Commodore Connor to allow Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna to return to Mexico from his exile in Havana, thinking that he would negotiate a treaty ceding territory to the U.S. for a price. Polk sent representatives to Cuba for talks with Santa Anna. Polk sent an army expedition led by Stephen W. Kearny towards Santa Fe to territory beyond the original claims in Texas. In 1845, Polk, fearful of French or British intervention, had sent Lieutenant Archibald H. Gillespie to California with orders to foment a pro-American rebellion that could be used to justify annexation of the territory. After meeting with Gillespie, Army Captain John C. Fremont led settlers in Northern California to overthrow the Mexican garrison in Sonoma, in what became known as the Bear Flag Revolt. In August 1846, American forces under Kearny captured Santa Fe, capital of the province of New Mexico, without firing a shot. Almost simultaneously, Commodore Robert F. Stockton landed in Los Angeles and proclaimed the capture of California. After American forces put down a revolt, the United States held effective control of New Mexico and California. Nevertheless, the Western theater of the war would prove to be a political headache for Polk, since a dispute between Fremont and Kearny led to a break between Polk and the powerful Missouri senator and father-in-law of Fremont, Thomas Hart Benton. A painting showing people gathered on a porch around one who is reading from a newspaper, War News from Mexico, 1848, painting by Richard Caton Woodville. The initial public euphoria over the victories at the start of the war slowly dissipated. In August 1846, Polk asked Congress to appropriate $2 million as a down payment for the potential purchase of Mexican lands. Polk's request ignited opposition, as he had never before made public his desire to annex parts of Mexico, aside from lands claimed by Texas. It was unclear whether such newly acquired lands would be slave or free, and there was fierce and acrimonious sectional debate. A freshman Democratic congressman, David Wilmot of Pennsylvania, previously a firm supporter of Polk's administration, offered an amendment to the bill, the Wilmot Proviso, that would ban slavery in any land acquired using the money. The appropriation bill, with the Wilmot Proviso attached, passed the House, but died in the Senate. This discord cost Polk's party, with Democrats losing control of the House in the 1846 elections. In early 1847, though, Polk was successful in passing a bill raising further regiments, and he also finally won approval for the appropriation. Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, 1847. To try to bring the war to a quick end, in July 1846, Polk considered supporting a potential coup led by the exiled Mexican former president, General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, with the hope that Santa Anna would sell parts of California. Santa Anna was in exile in Cuba, still a colony of Spain. Polk sent an envoy to have secret talks with Santa Anna. The U.S. consul in Havana, R.B. Campbell, began seeking a way to engage with Santa Anna. A U.S. citizen of Spanish birth, Colonel Alejandro Jose Atocha, knew Santa Anna and acted initially as an intermediary. Polk noted his contacts with Atocha in his diary, who said that Santa Anna was interested in concluding a treaty with the U.S. gaining territory, while Mexico received payment that would include settling its debts. Polk decided that Atocha was untrustworthy and sent his own representative, Alexander Slidell Mackenzie, a relative of John Slidell, to meet with Santa Anna. Mackenzie told Santa Anna that Polk wished to see him in power, and that if they came to an agreement that the U.S. naval blockade would be lifted briefly to allow Santa Anna to return to Mexico. Polk requested $2 million from Congress to be used to negotiate a treaty with Mexico, or payment to Mexico before a treaty was signed. The blockade was indeed briefly lifted, and Santa Anna returned to Mexico, not to head a government that would negotiate a treaty with the U.S., but rather to organize a military defense of his homeland. Santa Anna gloated over Polk's naivete. Polk had been snookered by Santa Anna. Instead of coming to a negotiated settlement with the U.S., Santa Anna mounted a defense of Mexico and fought to the bitter end. His actions would prolong the war for at least a year, and more than any other single person, it was Santa Anna who denied Polk's dream of short war. This caused Polk to harden his position on Mexico, and he ordered an American landing at Veracruz, the most important Mexican port on the Gulf of Mexico. From there, troops were to march through Mexico's heartland to Mexico City, which it was hoped would end the war. Continuing to advance in northeast Mexico, Taylor defeated a Mexican army led by Ampudia in the September 1846 Battle of Monterrey, but allowed Ampudia's forces to withdraw from the town, much to Polk's consternation. Polk believed Taylor had not aggressively pursued the enemy and offered command of the Veracruz expedition to Scott. The lack of trust Polk had in Taylor was returned by the Whig general, who feared the partisan president was trying to destroy him. Accordingly, Taylor disobeyed orders to remain near Monterrey. In March 1847, Polk learned that Taylor had continued to march south, capturing the northern Mexican town of Saltillo. Continuing beyond Saltillo, Taylor's army fought a larger Mexican force led by Santa Anna in the Battle of Buena Vista. Initial reports gave the victory to Mexico with great rejoicing, but Santa Anna retreated. Mexican casualties were 5 times that of the Americans, and the victory made Taylor even more of a military hero in the American public's eyes, though Polk preferred to credit the bravery of the soldiers rather than the Whig general. The U.S. changed the course of the war with its invasion of Mexico's heartland through Veracruz, and ultimately the capture of Mexico City, following hard fighting. In March 1847, Scott landed in Veracruz and quickly won control of the city. The Mexicans expected that yellow fever and other tropical diseases would weaken the U.S. forces. With the capture of Veracruz, Polk dispatched Nicholas Trist, Buchanan's chief clerk, to accompany Scott's army and negotiate a peace treaty with Mexican leaders. Trist was instructed to seek the cession of Alta California, New Mexico, and Baja California, recognition of the Rio Grande as the southern border of Texas, and U.S. access across the isthmus of Tehuantepec. Trist was authorized to make a payment of up to $30 million in exchange for these concessions. In August 1847, as he advanced towards Mexico City, Scott defeated Santa Anna at the Battle of Contreras and the Battle of Churubusco. With the Americans at the gates of Mexico City, Trist negotiated with commissioners, but the Mexicans were willing to give up little. Scott prepared to take Mexico City, which he did in mid-September. In the United States, a heated political debate emerged regarding how much of Mexico the United States should seek to annex. Whigs such as Henry Clay arguing that the United States should only seek to settle the Texas border question, and some expansionists arguing for the annexation of all of Mexico. War opponents were also active. Whig Congressman Abraham Lincoln of Illinois introduced the exact spot resolutions, calling on Polk to state exactly where American blood had been shed on American soil to start the war, but the House refused to consider them. Peace. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. The Mexican cession in red was acquired through the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. The Gadsden Purchase, in orange, was acquired through purchase after Polk left office. Frustrated by a lack of progress in negotiations, Polk ordered Trist to return to Washington, but the diplomat, when the notice of recall arrived in mid-November 1847, ignored the order, deciding to remain and writing a lengthy letter to Polk the following month to justify his decision. Polk considered having Butler, designated as Scott's replacement, forcibly remove him from Mexico City. Though outraged by Trist's defiance, Polk decided to allow him some time to negotiate a treaty. Throughout January 1848, Trist regularly met with officials in Mexico City, though at the request of the Mexicans, the treaty signing took place in Guadalupe Hidalgo, a small town near Mexico City. Trist was willing to allow Mexico to keep Baja California as his instructions allowed, but successfully haggled for the inclusion of the important harbor of San Diego in a cession of Alta California. Provisions included the Rio Grande border and a $15 million payment to Mexico. On February 2, 1848, Trist and the Mexican delegation signed the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Polk received the document on February 19th and, after the cabinet met on the 20th, decided he had no choice but to accept it. If he turned it down, with the House by then controlled by the Whigs, there was no assurance Congress would vote funding to continue the war. Both Buchanan and Walker dissented, wanting more land from Mexico, a position with which the president was sympathetic, though he considered Buchanan's view motivated by his ambition. Some senators opposed the treaty because they wanted to take no Mexican territory. Others hesitated because of the irregular nature of Trist's negotiations. Polk waited in suspense for 2 weeks as the Senate considered it, sometimes hearing that it would likely be defeated and that Buchanan and Walker were working against it. He was relieved when the 2 cabinet officers lobbied on behalf of the treaty. On March 10th, the Senate ratified the treaty in a 38-14 vote, a vote that cut across partisan and geographic lines. The Senate made some modifications to the treaty before ratification, and Polk worried that the Mexican government would reject them. On June 7th, Polk learned that Mexico had ratified the treaty. Polk declared the treaty in effect as of July 4, 1848, thus ending the war. With the acquisition of California, Polk had accomplished all 4 of his major presidential goals. With the exception of the territory acquired by the 1853 Gadsden Purchase and some later minor adjustments, the territorial acquisitions under Polk established the modern borders of the contiguous United States.